Hi, everyone, and welcome to Quality Frameworks for Online Learning by me, Anitra Thompson. So, in the agenda today, we will be going over, or I'll give an overview of three of the most widely used frameworks for evaluating online learning, which is Quality Matters, the National Standards for Quality, and the Community of Inquiry Survey Instrument. I have a horrible time saying that. And then, of course, I'll compare how these frameworks work together, how they differ, and then finally apply that to some real world scenarios. And then, of course, that'll be, towards Cengage where I work, and in that kind of EdTech environment. And I even go into a little bit of classroom as well. So, why do these frameworks matter? So, frameworks like Quality Matter, NSQ, COI are important because they provide structured ways to evaluate and improve online learning environments. So, as an online education continues to grow, um, simply like delivering content is not enough. Courses need to be intentionally designed and supported by effective systems, and then also create meaningful learning experiences for students. And these frameworks help guide that process by offering clear standards and principles that educators can use to design, assess, and improve these courses. So they also fit the focus from just what is being taught to how learning is actually happening, and which is especially important in online learning or blended learning environments. I would say overall, these frameworks help ensure that online learning is not only accessible, but also effective, engaging, and aligned to what a student needs. So, Quality Matters, or QM, is a widely recognized framework that focuses on design quality of online and blended courses. It uses a rubric based approach that really emphasizes alignment between learning objectives, assessments, and instructional materials, and of course, also activities. So, one of its key features is the peer review process where trained reviewers evaluate courses using the standardized criteria from that rubric. And QM is primarily focused on ensuring that a course is, like I said, intentionally designed to support learning outcomes rather than just evaluating how it is taught or experienced by students. The National Standards for Quality, or NSQ, takes I would say a broader approach by evaluating online learning at like a system level rather than focusing on just the course design like QM. NSQ includes standards for online programs, teaching practices, and just full courses. So this means it looks at leadership, infrastructure, instructional practices, and I would say even like overall consistency across an organization. So NSQ emphasizes that high quality online learning depends not just on like well designed courses, but also on the strong systems, support, and of course, instructional practices. So now we go into the community of inquiry, and that's COI, and this framework focuses on the learning experience itself. So particularly how students interact and construct their knowledge. Um, It is built on like three key elements. So social presence, cognitive presence, and teaching presence. And unlike QM or NSQ, COI is often measured using a survey instrument that really captures student perceptions of all of these elements together. And this makes it unique because it provides insight into how learners actually experience a course rather than just how it's designed. And when comparing these frameworks, it becomes clear that each one focuses on a different dimension of online learning quality. So QM is primarily concerned with course design, ensuring that all elements of a course are aligned and clearly structured. Uh, the national standards for quality takes that broader perspective by focusing on the entire program and all the systems, including teaching practices and the institutional support. Lastly, COI shifts the focus to, like I said, the learner experience. So it really emphasizes interaction, engagement, and how students construct knowledge. So, analytics really go in hand here. And rather than seeing them all as competing with each other, these frameworks actually complement one another by addressing all these different aspects of online learning. So, together, they provide a more complete understanding of what quality looks like in online education. All right, and now we get into the differences. So, despite that they do have the differences, these frameworks actually, or we're getting into the similarities, sorry. So, despite their differences, these frameworks show several important similarities in how they define quality in online learning. So, first, I would say all three emphasize student centered learning and ensuring that instruction is designed to support learners rather than simply deliver the content. Um, Second, they highlight the importance of interaction and engagement. So, whether this is reflected through structured activities and QM, teaching practices and NSQ, or like social and cognitive presence in COI, all three frameworks recognize that active participation is essential. So, and it's meaningful for learning. And then lastly, another key area where they all align is both QM and NSQ. Their learning objectives, assessments, and activities must be clearly connected. And even with COI, alignment is reflected in how teaching presence support or yeah, how teaching presence supports cognitive outcomes. And finally, all three frameworks support continuous improvement by providing that structure um, providing structured ways to evaluate learning environments. And it also helps identify, I would say, like areas for growth. And these shared principles, I would say, really demonstrate that while the frameworks differ in approach, they are ultimately working toward the same goal of improving learning outcomes. So while the frameworks, like I said, do share common goals, they do differ significantly in how they approach evaluating quality. And I've kind of mentioned this, but QM, specifically course design, NSQ evaluates the entire program and systems, that broad perspective, and COI focuses on the learner experience within a course. Second, they also differ in methodology. QM uses that rubric based process, NSQ uses the standards across multiple levels. And then, of course, COI is like a theoretical model supported by the survey instruments. Um, and third, they differ in the type of data they use. So QM relies on more of that structured based rubric scoring. NSQ incorporates a program and instructional evaluation, and COI collects perception based data from students. So that's what I said, where the analytics come in. And these differences really highlight that not one single framework really fully captures the online learning quality on its own, which is why they are usually most often effective when they're actually used together and assessed with each of them. So, why we actually use these multiple frameworks, it actually allows for a more comprehensive evaluation of online learning because each one provides like a different perspective. So, for example, QM it ensures that like a course is well designed and aligned. NSQ ensures that the broader system supports effective instruction, and at the same time, COI provides insight into how students actually experience this course. And if only one framework is used, important aspects of learning could very well be overlooked. So, for instance, a course may be well designed according to QM standards, but it could still lack like the meaningful interaction or engagement that COI, surveys or looks up into. So, by I would say tying all these frameworks together, educators can address design, implementation, and experience all at once. And this leads, I would say, to just more intentional decision making, which is the whole point, and ultimately a stronger learning experience. So, in the Cengage context, which is where I work, which is an EdTech company, a publisher, these frameworks can be applied across both course design and instructional support. So, QM, I would say it aligns closely with like how our digital courseware, like MindTap, is structured. So almost like an LMS. It has content, assessments, and learning objectives, and they're intentionally designed to align with each other, supporting that clear learning pathway for students. NSQ, it can be seen in how institutions implement like their LMS platforms and integrate tools like Cengage across these programs. And this includes like ensuring consistency, scalability, and support for both instructors and students. And then, of course, COI is reflected in how students interact with content, instructors, and how they interact with peers within the platforms. So, features like discussion boards, feedback tools, which we have a lot of feedback tools in MindTap, a lot of AI usage, and it really dives deep even to on a question by question basis. So you get that, and also a lot of interactive activities would all contribute to that social, cognitive, and teaching presence. So from a customer success specialist, which is what I am, um, or a perspective, I would say I support instructors in using these tools effectively, which really highlights how these frameworks are not just like the theoretical, but actively how they actively shape the world and or real world online learning. All right. So also I tried to think of ways that this would impact a classroom. I'm not really in there that much, but I look forward to maybe stepping into the classroom more often. But in the classroom or like blended learning environments, I would say these frameworks can be applied to support effective instruction. So QM can guide how lessons are structured, ensuring that the objectives, activities, and assessments are clearly aligned. NSQ can support consistency across courses or grade levels, and it also helps ensure that students have a predictable and cohesive learning experience. And then COI, it enhances student engagement by encouraging the interaction, encouraging collaboration, and then meaningful communication. Even in environments that are not fully online, these frameworks help ensure that technology is used intentionally to support learning rather than simply just adding it, as an extra component in there, which I do see often. All right, and now we get into our key takeaways. I would say overall, quality matters. NSQ, COI, all of those each provide a unique perspective on what defines quality in learning. QM focuses on course design and alignment. NSQ addresses the broader systems and program level quality, and COI emphasizes the student learning experience. And while each of these frameworks have a different focus, they are most effective when used together because they address different dimensions of learning. And this highlights the quality in online education that is not defined by a single factor, but by the combination of design, structure, and interaction. So, by applying all of these frameworks intentionally, educators and organizations can create more effective, engaging, and meaningful learning experiences for students and probably themselves, to be honest. Oh, and here are my references. Of course, if you go to my website, I do have the slide panels out, so you can go in and click on any of those links if you need to. And thank you all very much.